He pushed me off the balcony on Christmas. Can you even imagine? One moment I was looking at the twinkling lights of the city, the next I was falling, a scream tearing from my throat that was swallowed by the cold night air. My own husband, the man I loved, the man I married, tried to murder me in cold blood on what was supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year. I broke nearly every bone in my body, but somehow, miraculously, I survived. And now, I'm here to expose him. Tell me, would you have done the same thing if you were me? Would you have fought for justice against the person who swore to cherish you? It all started, as most love stories do, with a whirlwind romance. Mark was everything I thought I wanted. He was charming, witty, incredibly handsome, and he made me laugh until my sides ached. We met at a mutual friend's party. I was instantly drawn to his easy smile, and the way his eyes crinkled when he found something genuinely amusing. We spent the entire evening talking, completely oblivious to anyone else in the room. He walked me home, and even though it was a chilly autumn night, I felt a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the wool scarf I was wearing. Our dates were magical long walks in the park, impromptu road trips to the coast, cozy nights in watching old movies. He brought me flowers for no reason, remembered every small detail I ever told him, and made me feel like the most important person in the world. Within 6 months, he proposed. It was on a picturesque bridge overlooking a river, with the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Of course, I said yes. I was head over heels, completely smitten, utterly convinced I had found my soulmate. My family adored him too. My mom, a notoriously tough judge of character, took to him immediately. My dad, usually reserved, would crack jokes with Mark and talk about sports for hours. My best friend, Sarah, who had seen me through countless disastrous relationships, actually shed a tear when I told her I was engaged, saying, "He's the one, I can feel it." Looking back, I feel like such a fool. How could I have been so blind? The wedding was beautiful. A small, intimate affair with close friends and family. We exchanged vows, promising to love and cherish each other through sickness and health, for richer or poorer. Little did I know, the poorer part would become a very literal and terrifying reality, but not in the way I ever expected. Our first year of marriage was a dream. We bought a cozy little house with a balcony that overlooked the city, a place where we'd often enjoy our morning coffee or watch the sunset with a glass of wine. We talked about having children, about our future, about growing old together. Mark was still attentive, still loving, still everything I thought I wanted. The cracks, when they started to appear, were subtle at first. He began to become more controlling. He'd question where I was going, who I was with, and why I was home late, even if it was only by a few minutes. He'd check my phone when I was in the shower, or subtly look over my shoulder when I was texting a friend. When I confronted him, he'd dismiss it as concern, saying he just worried about me, that he loved me so much he couldn't stand the thought of anything happening to me. I brushed it off, attributing it to his intense love, telling myself I was lucky to have a husband who cared so much. Then came the financial issues. Mark had always been a bit secretive about his finances. He'd told me he had some investments, that his family had a trust, but he never went into detail. I had my own steady job as a graphic designer, and we kept our finances mostly separate, contributing to joint household expenses. However, he started asking me for money, small amounts at first for what he called short-term investments that would pay off big. I, trusting fool that I was, gave him what I could. Then the amounts grew larger. He became irritable, snapping at me over trivial things, constantly stressed about money. He started gambling too. I found betting slips in his pockets, saw suspicious charges on our joint credit card statements, and he'd spend hours on his phone, furiously tapping away at sports betting apps. When I confronted him about the gambling, he became furious. He yelled at me, accused me of not trusting him, of trying to control his life. It was the first time I saw that dark, unsettling anger in his eyes, and it chilled me to the bone. He apologized profusely later, blaming the stress, promising to stop. I, once again, wanted to believe him. I wanted our perfect love story back. Things escalated. The controlling behavior intensified. The financial demands became more frequent and more desperate, and the emotional abuse was almost constant. He'd belittle my intelligence, mock my career choices, and gaslight me into believing that I was the problem, that I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too demanding. I was a shadow of my former self. My vibrant personality had been replaced by anxiety and fear. I started avoiding friends, making excuses not to see family, because I couldn't bear the thought of them seeing the shell I had become, or asking questions I didn't want to answer. I tried to talk to him, to get him to see what he was doing, to seek help. He refused, always turning it back on me, twisting my words until I was the one apologizing. I started to think about leaving, about escaping this nightmare, but fear held me captive. Fear of being alone, fear of his reaction, fear of admitting that my perfect love story was a complete fabrication. And then Christmas arrived. We had planned a quiet evening at home, just the two of us. I had cooked a special meal, decorated the apartment beautifully, and even bought him a thoughtful gift, a vintage watch he had admired. He seemed in a good mood, almost jovial, and for a fleeting moment, I thought perhaps we could salvage things, that the Mark I fell in love with was still in there somewhere. We ate dinner, exchanged gifts, and then decided to go out onto the balcony to look at the city lights. It was snowing lightly, and the city below was a twinkling wonderland. I leaned against the railing, feeling a pang of nostalgia for the early days of our relationship, when moments like these were filled with pure joy. I remember thinking how beautiful everything looked, and for a split second I felt a flicker of hope. He came up behind me, putting his arms around my waist. I leaned back into his embrace, thinking, just maybe, everything would be okay. His grip tightened, not in a loving way, but in a possessive, forceful manner. And then he said it. "You know, you're worth a lot more dead than alive." So that's the situation I was in, standing on that balcony, with those chilling words ringing in my ears, and my husband's arms tightening around me. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. What would your instincts tell you to do in that moment of absolute terror and betrayal? The world tilted. The beautiful city lights blurred. I felt a surge of adrenaline, pure, unadulterated terror coursing through my veins. He lifted me with an unexpected strength, and I knew, in that split second, exactly what he was doing. I screamed, a raw, primal sound that was ripped from my soul. I clawed at his arms, my nails tearing at his skin, but his grip was like iron. I thrashed, kicked, fought with every ounce of strength I had, but it wasn't enough. He pushed. I was airborne for what felt like an eternity, the cold night air rushing past me, the ground rushing up to meet me. The impact was brutal, a symphony of sickening crunches and searing pain. I remember a flash of white, then darkness. I woke up in a hospital bed, every part of my body screaming in agony. My head was throbbing, my limbs felt heavy and broken. A kind nurse was adjusting my Roman IV drip, her face etched with concern. When I tried to move, a sharp pain shot through my chest, and I gasped. The nurse immediately called for a doctor. They told me I had fractured ribs, a collapsed lung, a broken arm, a shattered ankle, and multiple other injuries. It was a miracle I was alive. I was in critical condition, but stable. When the police came, I told them everything. Every detail, every chilling word, every manipulative act. They were skeptical at first, of course. Who would believe that a loving husband would try to murder his wife on Christmas? But then they saw my injuries. They interviewed our neighbors who had heard a commotion, and they found the scratches on Mark's arms. They also discovered his massive gambling debts that could only be settled with a life insurance payout. He had taken out a huge policy on me just 6 months prior, naming himself as the sole beneficiary. He was arrested, and the charges were horrific: attempted murder. The trial was long, arduous, and emotionally draining. Mark tried to paint me as unstable, as a liar, as someone who was making up a story for attention. He claimed I had attempted to jump, and he had tried to save me. He was convincing, charming even, to those who didn't know the monster beneath the facade. But I had my truth, and the evidence supported me. My testimony was heartbreaking, reliving that terrifying night over and over again. My family and friends rallied around me, offering unwavering support. Sarah testified about my changed demeanor, my fear, and how I had isolated myself. My parents spoke of their growing concerns about Mark. The police presented the financial records, the gambling debts, and the life insurance policy. The prosecution built an iron-clad case. Mark was eventually convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to a lengthy prison term. Justice, slow and painful, was finally served. It's been a long road to recovery, both physically and emotionally. I still have scars, both visible and invisible, but I'm healing. I've learned that survival isn't just about breathing. It's about reclaiming your life, your voice, and your strength. I've moved into a new place, a place with no balconies, and I'm slowly rebuilding my life, piece by painful piece. I've started therapy, reconnected with friends and family, and I'm focusing on my art again. The experience changed me forever, but it also made me stronger, more resilient, and fiercely determined to live a life filled with genuine love and honesty. The man I married was a monster, but I refused to let him destroy me. I hope my story serves as a warning, a reminder that sometimes the people closest to us can harbor the darkest secrets, and that sometimes, even when it feels like the world is pushing you down, you can find the strength to fight back and expose the truth. Like this video, if you were on my side through this whole ordeal. Subscribe for more stories like this, and please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.